What's up everyone, Michael here with another topic video. Today we're going to talk about how in China they recently released a regulation that would make it so that online games and other gambling type schemes would actually have to disclose their loot tables for random boxes that you would purchase with microtransactions. Now this kind of sounds a little bit strange because you'd be like, what? And basically what it is the random boxes that you can purchase with money would actually have to disclose their drop rate. So if you had a 10% chance to get this, then it would be like, hey, you have to disclose that. So it'd be like 10% chance for this, you have a 9% chance for this, and they'd have to disclose every item on that list. Now, this is based off of a translation on a NeoGAF post. You can find the link in the description for the article that I checked out. So you can go ahead and look at that and self-translate if you don't believe the words, but I kind of want to talk about the topic regardless, because it really allows me to talk more about loot boxes, because I despise loot boxes. But anyways, game in the background is Gears of War 4. It also has loot boxes for the Horde mode that I'm currently playing, which is kind of annoying. And you can purchase them with real money, or you can get them in-game. So at least you can get them in-game. But at the say time, that's probably one of the reasons why I'd never spend money on this game, is because they have loot boxes. Because I absolutely hate loot boxes, to be honest. Yeah, I actually didn't even buy this game. I got a key for it. So full disclosure there as well. I got a key for it and thought I may as well do it in a video. So anyways, let's go ahead and talk about the topic. So in China, they've actually been releasing quite a few kind of laws around the gambling and sort of online gaming scenario, to where they're like, hey, you need to be a little bit more consumer friendly. That's mostly because the free-to-play market is actually quite popular in those types of regions, especially in like Korea as well. Korea has a ton of laws that have been put in place over the last few years about the whole free-to-play model type of stuff. Like let's say a credit limit that you can spend that was imposed in, I believe, Korea 2 years ago, to where you can only have a certain amount of microtransactions purchasable per month. Korea also implemented the energy system, to where every game has to have an energy system because people would get addicted. And yeah, so they take their liberties a little bit farther than most, I think, states, most countries. Like, let's say the US, they don't have really any laws around that. It's more of a case of, you actually have to disclose if it's gambling or not, which, when it is loot boxes, there's actually a gray area where they actually don't announce that that's gambling for some reason in the US, which is kind of frustrating. But China and Korea and some other Asian countries are much more strict on their laws when it comes to online gaming. And I think most of that ends up just coming down to the kind of cultures and stuff like that. And a lot of people end up getting addicted to a lot of these types of games, and then people spend way too much money. It's not uncommon for a free-to-play game to have somebody spend $10,000 on loot boxes to try and get one specific item that they want. Now, real quick, what is a loot box or random reward system? So if you're not familiar with the free-to-play games model, or I guess a lot of paid games now are doing it as well, like let's say Gears of War, for example, it has random loot boxes. So essentially what it is, it's a box that you can purchase with real money and sometimes in-game currency, or you earn it in-game. I'm fine when you can earn it in-game, or you can purchase it with in-game credits. That's an okay thing. I don't think the randomness is necessarily a bad thing when it comes to game rewards. I mean, I'm a fan of like RPGs, so I would kind of be a hypocrite if I said otherwise. That kind of random chance of getting something awesome isn't necessarily bad. However, with these box systems, it is essentially you're spending real money to try and get items that you have no idea what's actually going to be in them. So it could be, let's say it's something super awesome, like a legendary skin, or it's a super awesome item that's like super rare and everything, and not very many people have it. Or it can end up just being a useless piece of junk that you don't want, or maybe it's a duplicate of something you have. It is essentially, you open the box, you have a 10% chance for this, 9% chance for this, a 2% chance for this, yada yada. And I'm not a fan of them, because when I spend money on games, I would prefer to get exactly what I spent my money for. I don't like loot box systems. There's several games that I actually like that have loot box systems. So like, let's say Phantasy Star Online 2, probably my favorite MMO of all time, has loot boxes as well, where it's all cosmetic, so I'm perfectly fine with it for the most part, but I will never purchase them myself. But essentially it has, a bunch of outfits that are in rotation, and it has all these different items that are limited time based off of that. Obviously they return to the scratch, so you can be like, oh, I'm going to try again later, and they call it a gacha system in that game. And that's fine because it's cosmetic, but some games have actually gone to the greater extent of making gameplay-centric items inside of these loot boxes. Some games, especially on mobile, have actually made it to a point where you actually have to purchase these random boxes to even play the game properly. Now, one example that has these loot boxes systems, what I'm actually okay with, is Monster Super League. I actually did a review on it. And the reason I'm okay with that is because the currency which you get to actually roll for random monsters and things like that, because it's a monster collection game, think of like Pokemon or something like that, is actually fairly easy to get, and so you can actually roll quite often. However, you can pay money if you want to get them quicker. That I'm fine with, but it's the fact that a lot of these games have been abusing the system, which is why China is now implementing this law to where, you have to disclose these chances. Now, on a face value, it seems like a good idea. Would it be better? Would I actually buy random loot boxes? No, because, even if it's a 90% chance to get what you want and a 10% chance that you're going to get garbage, there's still a 10% chance that you're going to get garbage. It's one of those things to where if I'm going to pay money, I don't care if it would cost a little bit more, I just want to have it guaranteed. And I have actually gone to that route as well in these free-to-play games, because I play quite a few of them, and I enjoy quite a few of them as well. However, there are some games that actually do a decent job with the system as well, and the reason why a lot of people end up using loot boxes legitimately, like let's not say, let's not focus on the negative side to where, mobile developers and things like that are kind of focusing on using it as a money scheme just to profit from it. There are some like developers and publishers that actually do it quite well. So like, let's say Riot Games with their League of Legends title. So League of Legends actually has a random loot box system in it. It is completely optional, and you can earn them in-game. You play a certain number of games, you get keys and boxes quite easily. It actually has an interesting system to where you actually have to earn the boxes by getting an S rank on your characters, which means you actually have to play well to get these boxes, which is kind of cool. It, adds incentive to playing well. But overall, it's actually a decent system for kind of two reasons. One, it's a system where you can get them in-game, and it actually adds incentive to play better, which is something that's extremely rare in these types of games. But it is also a system to where it's actually cheaper. Like, let's say there's 130 champions of League of Legends. Let's say you just don't care what skin you get. You just want a new skin because you're bored, you want to have something interesting to kind of throw up there. Or let's say you play pretty much every champ. Like, I play a very large random kind of selection of champs. Now, what you could end up doing is just, instead of paying $8 to $12 for a skin, just kind of ridiculous. I think the pricing is still too expensive. But you pay that much for a normal skin. Instead of doing that, you can just buy these random loot boxes and spend $3 instead. And then so when you roll that $3 box, you can just end up getting a skin and be perfectly happy with it because you play so many different champs, and there's so many skins in that game, and so many of them are great. You'd be like, what, cool. You might be a little bit disappointed, but at the same time, you could roll another one so you can get two skins for the price of one sort of situation. And this is where it kind of hurts the positive side of the developer's side. It's because not all developers are constantly trying to screw you over. Now, having them have to disclose this kind of causes a situation to where that kind of it's cheaper to get loot box system may not actually be a good idea, because this ends up making it so that kind of consumers are going to look at it as a sort of kind of percentage chance scenario. So to be like, there's a percentage chance I can get this. Which one would actually be more financially beneficial for me to do so? So it'd be like, oh, there's a 10% chance for this. How many, I would have to buy this loot box 10 times to theoretically get a guaranteed chance for it. Is that going to be cheaper or more expensive than just buying it outright? And that's going to kind of ruin the chances system of it. And because of this, a lot of people are going to buy less boxes, which means that less boxes are going to kind of cost more, because they're going to be like, all right, well, we're not selling 20 of these, but we have to make a certain number of, profit from it. So it'd be like, oh, we have to sell at least 2,000 of these boxes. When they introduce the system, let's say, more people are taking the chances, or less people are taking chances on their boxes because they know the percentage chance, then that means that the boxes are actually going to have to rise in price because they have to make a certain amount of profit. So it'd be like, oh, well, we're not selling 2,000, we're only selling 1,000, so we're going to have to double the price. Which means that it's basically going to make loot boxes theoretically useless and kind of ruin the entire system. While I think it's definitely consumer friendly to be like, these are your chances, I think that there needs to be a limit. I don't think they need to disclose everything. They should say stuff like, oh, there's a 20% chance that you'll get a rare. And a lot of loot boxes do this already. A lot of games are like, hey, you have a 20% chance to get a legendary item. And it'll be, kind of cool. It's like, hey, I have that much of a chance of getting an item that I'll actually care about. Now, obviously, a lot of games are not going to end up doing that sort of system. They're going to be like, hey, you know what? We just have loot boxes and people are going to buy them, rah, 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 rah. And a lot of games kind of, like I said before, mobile games kind of base their entire business model on it, and it does kind of suck. But at the same time, I think that having it disclosed 100% is actually going to damage the entire market. And I'm not saying that to be anti-consumer or anything like that. Like, I'm not a person who buys random loot boxes. I I just don't. I will with in-game currency. That's fine with me because it's in-game currency. It's kind of like, you know, you level up and get a random skill point or something like that. It's one of those things to where it's not a big deal. You earned it through in-game and it's perfectly fine. But it's when you're actually spending real money, you know, I would rather just buy the item outright, even if it costs a little bit more. But I'm not, you know, kind of, I guess, popular in that opinion. It seems like a lot of people in the gaming community definitely don't like random loot boxes, and a lot of people kind of criticize games for having even a loot system in the first place. But they actually work. Like, a lot of people buy these boxes. However, it's not also uncommon for people to spend ridiculous amounts of money on it as well. They have the whole term called whales, to where people spend a lot of money on games. And for one, I hate the term. Number two, you know, people will spend $10,000 on a mobile game because they want something out of a box and they just didn't happen to get it in 100 rolls. And that type of stuff needs to stop. And having this sort of disclosure will end up helping with that, because it'll be like, hey, you know, you have this much of a chance. And those types of people, oh, wow, I just got chainsawed in the back. Well, that was ridiculous. But it'll end up making it so that they can look at it and look at it at a mathematical perspective and be like, oh, well, you know what? Because most likely these are people that are going to be optimizing their strategies. So they'll be like, you know what, it'll be this. Oh, well, it's not worth it, so they won't do it. Or maybe they'll be like, all right, well, maybe I can do this many. So maybe it will. But at the same time, these are the type of people that are going to be spending that much money on the game anyways. And so maybe it actually won't change a thing. Instead, it might just actually end up harming the kind of market, as I said before. And loot boxes might end up being completely useless within China. Now, there's also the kind of proprietary situation as well, to where obviously governments don't understand how IP works at all. And so basically it would be like, hey, we have a special loot system that is specially designed to, you know, optimize player friendliness and optimize profits and stuff like that. And it'll be like perfectly for that developer and for that game and everything. Then other developers could be able to look at those drop tables and be like, we can do the same thing. And so, you know, there's obviously some sort of, I guess, trade secrets to be thrown in there. Oh, we failed. That's fine. There was only 3 of us, and I really wasn't even trying. Oh, actually, I got a decent amount of points. Anyways, so it could end up running into situations to where developers really don't want to show that, or publishers especially will not want to show that information, because that is disclosing things within your engine/game or whatever that is the kind of groundwork that is part of the game's design. And so when you're running into this sort of situation, you're like, maybe it's not a good thing to disclose this information because of those sort of intellectual properties. And as I said before, it could end up harming the market. It also kind of hurts the whole random surprise thing. I know that's kind of moot at this point. You know, the random surprise is always kind of there. You know, you don't know what you're going to get, and that's kind of fun sometimes. That's kind of one of the only reasons why I actually like loot boxes with in-game currency, because it's, you know, one of those things where, you know, it's kind of like you kill a boss monster in an MMO and you get a random, you know, rare drop, and you're like, yes! Not knowing those chances is kind of exhilarating for certain people, and that's cool. So it might also end up ruining that. But I don't see this actually going to be kind of too positive of a thing. Like, it's going to be consumer friendly in the long term, but in the long term, it might also end up damaging the entire market surrounding that specific model, which I don't think is necessarily a good thing. Even though I don't like loot boxes, I do see credit in them. You know, it does provide, as I said with the whole League of Legends thing, that provides a cheaper option for people who don't necessarily care, and it is exhilarating to get a random drop sometimes from these boxes, and so you can end up just doing that as well. But overall, I really hope it does work out, and I think that it's probably one of those things that's going to end up leaking into other markets, or maybe China will actually have different loot tables as well. Like, let's say the US actually releases a law to where they have to disclose it. We might actually see different loot tables depending on different regions, because that is a thing that happens. Different regions will sometimes have different drop tables for certain games. I can't remember what game it was. There was a game that used to do this that was actually fully disclosed later on. It was a Korean MMO. I can't remember what it was called. But they had a loot box system, and they actually disclosed that they changed the drop rates depending on the region. And so people were switching region servers. And so that was kind of a fun little deal. It was an old game. I can't remember what it was called. I used to play it. But regardless, you know, it could end up leaking into other regions to where, you know, people that don't change their loot box systems as well in different regions, they could be like, oh, let's say Gears of War 4 in China. It'll say, oh, well, this has to have, you know, disclosure on it. So it'll be like, this is a 5% chance. And then people on the US would be able to look at it and be like, oh, so yeah, basically it ruins it for everyone if it ends up not working out. Now, I could be completely wrong. This could end up being a completely positive move and only end up being consumer friendly and have absolutely no negative effects, which I would absolutely love. I think that that would be great if it ends up working perfectly fine. But knowing the marketing side of it, because I've done a lot of research, especially when I'm in sort of game development and stuff like that, it's one of those situations to where I'm scared it might ruin the actual appeal for the good developers. It'll screw over the people who are trying to screw other people over, but for people who, are not trying to screw people over, for people who are trying to optimize their strategies to make sure that players are able to get what they want and then also kind of add a random reward and kind of fun little system, it's gonna hurt them quite a decent amount with this sort of business model, which I fear for. Anyway, so that's going to be me on this topic. I don't know if the regulation is actually in play yet. I think it was proposed, and so that means that it's kind of like in legislation and could happen. I sort of hope it happens, but at the same time, I've already stated why I don't at the same time, but I kind of want it to happen because I kind of want to see what happens because I think that it is consumer friendly, especially in those sort of regions that sort of business model is kind of key, essential to a lot of games, especially the scammy type games. I would like to see those scammy type of games, kind of legitimize themselves a little bit, even if it's kind of forced by law. But anyways, this has been Michael with another topic video talking about how China is going to regulate game loot boxes a little bit more strictly, which is interesting. And I think that some people might actually not be okay with the government intervening in their games. I know that there's been several complaints about stuff like, let's say, the Korean energy system that people do not like at all. And that's kind of the government kind of stepping in and being like, hey, you guys, you got to do this. But at the same time, some people are going to welcome it because it's just more regulation. It's going to make things more legitimate and it's consumer friendly. Well, energy systems are not. I think that they're bullshit. But hey, anyways, this has been Michael with another type of video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this one. And hopefully this one drawed your fancy and you'll end up checking out my other stuff like my impressions review stuff. I did an impressions review of Monster Super League. I talked about it in this video. It also has a loot box system, sort of. It has a random summon system, so you can summon random monsters by paying a little bit of money, or you can use the in-game currency, which that's what I do, because why not? Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.